Christmas was coming up, and things were getting busy, since I had to start buying presents for the whole family. I'd just finished shopping, but I still needed to grab a present for my little cousin. She's not very hard to shop for since my cousin's 4. She likes things like Peppa Pig and My Little Pony. She really liked, and I say liked for a reason, Max and Ruby. So when I decided to go looking for a present, I figured something like a Max and Ruby DVD would be perfect, since she liked to watch it on a daily basis. However, Christmas meant that many of the online DVDs were sold out in most places. I went to look on eBay as well, but figured I couldn't trust what condition the DVDs would be in. So I was stuck in a rut for a while, until that package arrived. I was at home, still scrolling for a stupid DVD, until I heard the sound of something being pushed into my letterbox. I caught a hold of it before my dog did, and looked at the package. It seemed to be wrapped fairly badly, with what seemed like grease marks and stains on it. Naturally, as anyone would, I decided to open the package. Inside was something that I couldn't explain. It was a Max and Ruby DVD, but I had never seen one like it online. It was like some little kid had drawn on the front cover with a marker. The title was just Max and Ruby, with what looked like a poorly drawn illustration of Max and Ruby on the front. There were no names or anything, but on the back, it had a list of 4 episodes, all with blunt titles. Episode 001, Episode 002, Episode 003, Episode 004. I quickly gave the DVD a watch over. To my surprise, all the episodes were in perfect quality and seemed to have no flaws. It was as if it was a real DVD, just with a homemade cover. The only thing I thought appeared odd was the episode selection screen. The episodes had names, but they were all titled Max and Ruby 1, with the numbers being changed as it went down the list. The actual selection screen was just a plain white screen with black text and nothing else. After giving it much thought, I decided to change the cover to something a little nicer by printing out a DVD cover that I had found on Google and tracked down. It also had the names of the episodes labeled correctly. So I left the episode list screen alone, because I figured it was self-explanatory. Christmas eventually arrived, and I gave my little cousin her DVD, and she was happy with it throughout the day, but that was only because she hadn't watched it yet. On Boxing Day, the family had gone out for lunch and left me to babysit my cousin. I was not too bothered about being left at home. I figured now was the good time to put on the DVD for her. I had put it in and allowed it to play while I was in the kitchen eating my dinner. From what I could hear, she had watched episodes 1 to 3 so far. I was just about to finish off my noodles when I heard my cousin screaming from the other room. Dropping everything, I ran into the living room and saw my cousin curled up on the floor screaming. I looked up at the TV and felt my heart in my throat. What I caught a glimpse of was one of the most horrifying things I have ever seen. It was what appeared to be a frame of Max and Ruby standing next to each other in complete darkness. But what made it so horrible was their lack of faces. They had lost their noses and mouths, and their eyes were replaced with big black holes. The colors were a disgusting blood red, and there was a faint static in the background. The sound was then replaced with what was like the Max and Ruby theme, playing backward, with the faint sound of static in the mix of it all. It had to be the most disturbing thing I'd ever seen, and must have been on screen for at least 20 seconds before it went black and our TV turned off. I was able to calm my cousin down, telling her it wasn't real, and that she had just had a nightmare falling asleep in front of the TV. However, I knew in my mind it was completely real. My parents called me and told me they were going to be out all night, so this was the best opportunity to look at the DVD more closely. I didn't mention it to them, and as soon as I hung up, I grabbed the DVD before opening it on my laptop. As soon as it loaded, I noticed that episode 0004 had now been replaced with R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy, which sent a deep chill down my spine. Since my cousin was now asleep, I plugged in my earbuds so I could listen. Normally an episode of Max and Ruby would feature 3 short stories, but this episode only had 1. It started out quite happy. Max and Ruby were playing tag in the garden, and their parents were on the porch watching them play. However, something was off. The sound was playing in reverse, and the parents' faces were that of pure sadness. It panned to the mother and father, and in a voice of deep sorrow, the father spoke. "It was such a shame," he sighed. It then cut to the sound of static and a loud scream, followed by the sound of 2 people choking. The sounds felt so real, it made me almost physically sick. The scene then switched to both Max and Ruby standing in the front of what looked like a gravestone, labeled R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy once again. The 2 of them had no faces. At this point, there was also no sound, apart from faint static. This scene remained on screen for about 1.5 minutes, before it cut away to black. The scene changed again, now showing Max and Ruby sitting in Ruby's room. Both of them were sobbing. What happened next was probably the most disgusting yet saddest thing I've ever witnessed. The scene had changed to Max sitting in his room. He was standing on a chair, with a noose hanging from the ceiling. He placed the noose around his neck. My computer screen faded to black as the static got louder. Almost instantly, it then cuts to Ruby walking in on her brother. She let out a horrific scream, and the background turned black. The camera was panned on her face as the sound of a chair being kicked and the same choking from before began to play. The picture of Ruby's face stayed on screen for a good 5 minutes. This time, her eyes had returned as the same gaping holes. Ruby then started crying, and as before, there were no other facial features. The static slowly grew louder and drowned out the sound of her cries. Then the scene cut to black with just the loud static. When the screen returned, Ruby was standing now on her own in the garden by 2 gravestones. One was labeled R.I.P. Mommy and Daddy, and the other, R.I.P. Brother. The episode seemed to come to an end at last, as an old computer sound started playing. I was about to eject the DVD when the same image came up like it did on the TV. This time, however, there was text above the 2 rabbits, which said, "Death is our only release." There were no credits or anything else. It stayed on this for a few seconds before the DVD finally popped out of my laptop. The DVD somehow vanished after I went to sleep that night, and I have no clue whatever happened to it. Thankfully, I kept a few screenshots and saved them on my laptop. The next couple of days afterwards went by without anything unusual happening. I had a few nightmares about the DVD, but luckily that was all. My cousin had gone back home, along with the rest of her family. It was a late night, and my parents had went out to dinner, leaving me to watch TV. All of a sudden I heard what sounded like someone pushing something under the door. At this point, the DVD had left my mind, since I hadn't told anyone about it. However, it all came flooding back when I looked down at the letter in front of me, which had slid under the door. It was just a messy, folded piece of paper that read, "Death is our only release."